As many of my colleagues here in the dais knows, California has a complicated water system that faces sustainability challenges given our changing climate. Snowpack is projected to lessen as the climate warms, and the state will see a larger percentage of its precipitation in the form of rain. With these changes in our continually growing population in mind, we must consider how to make our water resources more sustainable and reliable for our population centers. In my district, in North San Diego County and South Orange County, we have a number of projects that are moving our communities toward a sustainable future. Pleased to say that the Bureau of Reclamation recognizes the value of those projects, and that the Doheny Ocean Desalination Project and the expansion of Oceanside's Mission Basin Groundwater Purification Facility are set to receive a combined $11 million from Reclamation. Together, these projects will increase access to locally sourced, great, clean drinking water. I'm proud that the water agencies in my district are building towards the future in a way that will allow them to more sustainably manage their water supply. I'm also encouraged that we're finally having a long overdue discussion on climate change, and it relates to water supplies. To Mr. Udall, as a scientist who studies the impact of climate change on water supplies, you may have seen reports that President Trump plans to establish a group at the White House to review climate science. The group would be led by William Happer, a physics professor who has no formal training as a climate scientist. In November 2017, Mr. Happer said, and I quote, "It's not as though if you double CO2, you make a big difference. You make a barely detectable difference," end quote. Mr. Udall, do you think Mr. Happer's statement is scientifically accurate, and how would you respond to his assertion?
That statement is not scientifically accurate. When Chevron tells us that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is right, as it recently did, and when Exxon decides we need a carbon fee, I think the debate's over on whether or not this issue is a real issue and we need to do something about it.
Another quote from Mr. Happer in March 2016, he said, and I quote, "I am trying to explain to my fellow Americans the serious damage that will be done to us, and indeed to the whole world, by cockamamie policies to save the planet from CO2, end quote. As a trained climate scientist, sir, how would you respond to that?
It's not correct.
Finally, in November 2015, Mr. Happer said, and I quote, "If plants could vote, they would vote for coal," end quote. As a trained climate scientist, how would you react to that?
CO2 does in fact fertilize plants, but it causes a whole series of other problems which we are now experiencing, including 50+ inches in Hurricane Harvey, of which 40% was due to climate change.
I appreciate your good work on behalf of evidence and climate science, and I would hope that others would acknowledge the overwhelming scientific consensus, and hopefully that will happen eventually in the White House as well. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back my time.